guided trip.
All right. Dane just exploded a beer all over himself to start out the podcast.
That's a good way to start.
Just Dane and I. Ryan's he was a little busy with work, and he was tired, so he didn't want to come do the podcast tonight. But
Boo.
yeah, that's all right. We'll make it work. Gunnison right now is running about 670. I haven't really checked Taylor East, but they're dropping. The East is dropping.
The Taylor is making up most of that. It's at 474 at Walmart.
Nice.
So it's like almost exactly 200 out of the East.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, Gunny's fishing good. You know, we've had some good action. We're seeing more and more kokanee. Today, though, on my float, which is a little weird, I was going to go nymph for some kokanee with some clients and didn't find a single one.
They're gone. The run's over.
It's gone. That's it. That's the biggest run we get.
They're not coming.
But people are catching them. People are seeing them. I heard the Almont stretch, they're seeing them.
It's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's early.
Yeah.
Early.
I didn't see any today. And
I don't look that hard for them until they're obviously there.
yeah, Sunday I saw some.
Really?
In town stretch.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, kokanee are coming in, the trout are moving. You know, they're trying to figure out where they want to go, I would say. You know, so sometimes it can be a little tough to find them. Got to look for those spots that people just aren't fishing, man. And then you can find the trout a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, the fishing's been good. You know, it's been cold in the mornings, so we've been starting a little bit later on our floats. But, I mean, I think it's still producing. We're yet to be into the fall season, you know, where it's going to start picking up again.
Dude, I think the temperature swing is pretty crazy right now. Actually, I think the river is moving like 10 degrees during the day, and the outside temperature is swinging like as much as 40 some days, which is pretty crazy.
I mean, yeah, this morning at my house it was 35 degrees, and then I think when I took off the river it was almost 85 degrees.
Yeah, that's 50 degrees.
That's
dude.
huge.
That's
a
time.
Big swing. But yeah, we got a couple emails, which is nice. Getting some emails and some questions. We'll go over one that's pretty simple. I think we can get after pretty quick. But this guy's name is Mike. Says enjoying the podcast. Thank you. I'm in the market for a new fly rod. I'm a peasant fisherman. Nice. Small to medium-sized rivers in Colorado, dries and hopper droppers mostly. Can you recommend some good ones? I replied, I'll let you go for it, but and then I'll tell you what I said.
Man, I'll tell you what, I don't ever. I mean, a 3-weight's fun on a small river, but if I was to, you know, have something that I could take to either, it would definitely still be the 9-foot 5-weight classic Western trout rod.
Yeah. Good all around. You
Yeah.
know, if you need to nymph, you can still nymph with it.
And, you know, if you're not a guide and you're not letting people fish it and you really just want something that'll work real well, I'd probably go with the 9-foot 5 Scott Radian. That's what I want to have for myself.
That's what I want. What would you recommend? Just like, I mean, not beating it up too much, but, you know, you don't want to break the bank. You bought a couple of rods the last week or so.
Yeah. Not by exact choice.
Yeah.
But
kind of a have to, not a want to.
Turns out the TFO Lefty Cray Pro 2 is actually a really sweet rod. I enjoy fishing it myself.
And by TFO, he's talking Temple Fork Outfitters.
Yeah, out of Texas.
Yeah. That is a little weird. It's out of Texas, but
good for them.
Lefty Cray Pro Series 2.
Yeah.
That doesn't break the bank.
No, I think it's like it's less than 200 for sure. I think it's like 150 something retail.
Yeah.
And it's medium fast, mostly tip flex rod.
Yep.
Really good for, you know, dry dropper, I've found, the way that I fish it anyway. I've also found that if you don't have a long leader, it's a little bit aggressive on dry flies, but
gotcha. That's a good point.
But you can tailor your leader.
Have you been fishing that Echo base too?
Yeah. I've fished that one for a long time. fishes really well for a $90 rod.
Hell yeah.
I'd compare it to a lot of $400 to $500 rods for sure.
Echo Base and Lefty Cray Pro Series 2 from Temple Fork Outfitters.
Both pretty cheap.
Yeah, I'd stick with the 9'5", honestly. I replied to this guy's email and I told him kind of the exact same thing. I said, I told him the Lefty Pro Series 2 is a good one.
Yeah, dude.
But Temple Fork, the thing about it, we're not sponsored by Temple Fork, but, for guides and even clients alike or anybody, just a fisherman who goes out, it's a great rod for the price, and the warranty's awesome.
Great warranty.
I mean, it's $35.
That's exactly what Echo is too.
Yeah,
on any of their rods.
You get your rod. You break a rod from Temple Fork, send it in, you get it a week later.
That's how Echo is.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because I fished Hardy rods for a while, and really expensive warranty. It's like $80 a section.
Yeah. So it's 10% of the rod cost.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, that's rough. And I didn't think that they came back fast enough.
Yeah.
Like if you're hardcore into it and that's like your main fishing rod, then.
But coming from us, that's what we fish. I pretty much only on my boat, and I fish these rods personally too, but during this time of year I don't get to fish all the time, but I carry the TFO BVKs on my boat.
It's a good one.
It's a fast action. It's nice and stiff. Most people can cast it. Sometimes it's a little hard for them, with certain rigs.
Yeah.
But if you work on that cast just a little bit, you can usually tune them up. But I'd say any of those rods right there by TFO, they're great rods, and most of them are under $250.
Yeah,
which is nice.
That is nice.
Yeah,
I'd also recommend the Echo 3.
That's a great rod.
It's a really good rod, and it's about $350 retail. Fishes more like a $600 rod.
It does,
I'd say.
And is that medium fast or fast?
I'd say it's more medium fast. Yeah. It's got a little bit of flex, especially in the 9'5" weight.
Yeah.
I fished the 10-footer more than the 9'5", but.
They're nice rods.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about that Echo is it's only got the one reel screw. What do you call that? A reel seat?
It's like your reel seat screw.
Yeah, there's only one on there.
Yeah, that's
what's a little nerve-wracking.
It is.
That one cinch down.
It's also a little heavy.
Yeah, it is heavy.
I kind of like it. I don't know. If you're looking for something really light, though, you might have to go more expensive.
Yeah. But, those are kind of our opinions on that. Obviously we fish a variety of different rods, but for the price, man, that's kind of, Echo makes a great rod. TFO makes a great rod.
I'd go with those two companies.
Yeah. And they're, good warranty, and you get them back fast. So.
And I fish them both from the boat and walk wading plenty.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Either way.
Well, sweet. Thanks for the email there, Mike. We got another one on Instagram here, but this guy wants to know a little bit more of so on I can't remember if it was our last podcast. It might have been where we talked about keeping the faith a little bit with clients. This is.
Was that on Salty?
It might have been on Salty, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically this guy is also a guide, but he's curious, how do you keep that faith with the clients? If they're not really willing to learn and listen, how do you overcome that? Especially when the fishing's a little slow or whatever. And then he also goes into a little bit, do you ever demand that your clients just stop and take a rest a little bit? If you can see they're getting a little tired.
That's a good question.
How do you deal with that without being too bossy about it?
I feel like that's a pretty in-depth question.
We can start out with the first one.
Yeah.
Basically, how do you keep the faith?
So definitely, if fishing is slow, I'll start, fishing them a little bit harder when I see that they are starting to kind of, taper off.
Dwindle.
They're obviously dwindling. And the fortunate thing about the Gunnison River is there's a lot of really good holes. And so there's always, in your mind, there's always a good opportunity.
Yeah.
Pretty much immediately after the next one. So I'll have them fish the hole, really hard. I'll row real hard for them and, really get them to get the right cast. And I think that people can, for the most part, tune into your energy, that you're getting excited about it.
Yeah.
And so they automatically are like, oh, okay, man, this might be the one. This might be the one. And also, if you just have a an actual, real talk with them. Be like, look, fishing's slow, but they're not going to give us any.
Yeah.
So you might as well fish it hard.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Because you're here to fish. I'm here to guide you.
Yeah.
I
think, once the guide starts losing faith, then it's kind of all downhill from there. If the guide stops working hard, if the guide kind of makes certain comments like, oh, it's real slow. And I find myself doing that often. I'm like, man, it's, that should have been an eat.
Yeah.
That should have been an eat. I find myself doing that, and I start thinking about it. I'm like, I shouldn't be saying stuff like that. Like I try and keep it as positive as I can, but sometimes I'll, just pull the boat over, change a rig barely, change color of something, and just be like, all right, new bugs, new chances, new opportunities. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, that is hard trying to keep those clients going when it's slow, or when they don't want to be involved. But if you can, my lady today kind of lost a little faith in it, and all of a sudden, 1 out of 30 casts would be a good cast. She would come up and eat her dry fly. And it was like, boom, there you go. And she'd miss because she wasn't quite in tune with it and didn't want to. You could tell she was getting tired.
Yeah.
And, once they start getting a little tired, I start, I can move a little faster and just be like, all right, I can tell you're getting worn out. Half day might have also been a little too much for you.
Quarter day trip.
Yeah, maybe we should have done 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
But that's a great question. That's hard. Every guide kind of comes up with their own, thing to keep people going. Just keep it light, and tell them, hey man, we're fishing, dude. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I say that a lot. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I just go sometimes like, hey man, we had a lot of opportunities, when the fishing was good, we had a lot of opportunities. Now the fishing's slow and we don't have those opportunities anymore, and so you got to work harder for them. You got to be more into it.
Yeah.
Because when you weren't ready at the beginning of the float, when fishing was good, you weren't there. And now, you're thinking it's not good and you're going, well, it could be me. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's tough to keep them going.
I mean, it gets difficult because, obviously you're on a guided trip. So a lot of the blame wants to get placed directly on the guide immediately.
Oh, definitely.
And, sometimes that may be the case, but for the most part, your fishing guide has been doing this every day.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's important to realize that, maybe you're not doing exactly what needs to happen every time, but he's trying, or she is trying to get you to do what needs to happen every time. And so, like I was saying, a lot of times they're not going to give it up for free. You got to really be able to fish it well for them to come up and eat because, you are trying to fool them after all.
And, some people can take that. Some people can't. Some people can understand like, hey, man, I'm good with what I did today. Everything's good. Like, if it's slow, whatever. Some people can't. They're like, well, we need to change. We need to do this. We need to do that. You're like, well, it's, we don't necessarily need to change. We just have to fish harder now. The sun's high. We got to do this differently. And maybe just have a little talk. Be like, look, we got to change our game up. We got to think harder. We got to be better. We've done all the practice, we missed all the fish we did, but now we have to be in it. And if they're not there, they're not there.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just sit down for a minute. I don't like to take no for an answer, as Dane,
I
but,
don't either, but
sometimes it's tough. And you just kind of got to break it down to people. Like, I understand you spend a lot of money, but this is what it is. It's fishing.
It is fishing.
Yeah.
Fishing's always good. It's the catching that
exactly
can be shitty sometimes. But a lot of times I'll pull the boat over entirely and be like, look, I feel like, maybe I didn't show you exactly what I needed you to do.
Exactly.
And so
let me show you.
We'll take a lot of that time to really start dialing some stuff in without it being like, in the actual fishing holes.
Yeah.
They need to be hit hard and hit well. Because a lot of times float fishing, especially now, you got one really good shot at it and you need to make it count.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's on to the next. You can't be casting into that hole 3 or 4 times and now it's gone. So.
I get that completely. And he kind of brings up the psychology of it, kind of how, like, getting it hacks for the client mindset, and sometimes that's hard. But again, I think if the guide stays upbeat, if the guide stays in it, if the guide wants to keep being there, then usually the clients will be in it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
if they understand that, hey, my guide's trying hard, he's there, he's working for us, we're not catching them, we're not catching them. You know, if he's being positive about it and trying to put them on fish, then I think it's a better time.
I think yeah, if you can really break it down to somebody, like if it gets that way to where it's real slow and it just starts to get to the point where it's like, oh man, what are we doing? You got to pull over and you got to be like, look, we're fishing. We're fly fishing. Fly fishing ain't easy, but we're fishing. You know, and we're not working.
Yeah, exactly. And you get people, I mean, we're working, but you get people that'll kind of get down on themselves about it if they miss a fish or whatever, and you go, hey, look, it's fishing. You know, this isn't easy. I mean, this is what, you know, if you miss a fish, you miss a fish. I miss fish all the time. You know, like everyone misses fish. It happens, you know, but just stay in it. Keep going. Keep trying.
Missing fish is a lot easier to overcome than not getting them to eat anything.
Exactly. And that's what's tough.
That does happen.
It does.
I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that are like, oh, you're just not throwing the right bug. It's like, well, if you go look at what these fish are actually doing when they're just hunkered to the bottom of the river, I mean, they're passing up plenty of natural bugs and not eating them. So
exactly. That's a good point as well, you know, and that's a good way to explain it. You know, and you're trying to convince a wild creature to eat some feather and some, you know, some shit on a hook.
It gets tough, but I mean.
It's hard. We can kind of dive into the second part of this where it says, you know, do you ever demand that your clients stop and take a rest? Sometimes I feel like it's a good option when they're struggling over and over again, but not trying to be too bossy. I definitely keep it. I don't say like, hey, we should stop and take a rest. You know, it's like, hey, let's pull over for a minute. Let's let's grab some water. Let me re-rig. Let me dry your fly, whatever I need to do, and make sure that, hey, drink some water, you know, sit down for a moment, take a breather. It's not easy. I can't fish all day. It's hard to fish 8 hours. It's hard to fish 4 hours.
It's ridiculous.
But, you know, you kind of just do these nonchalant things. It's like, hey, we're just taking a breather. Or, you know, you might pass it, or you get close to an area where it's like, hey, this is tough fishing. Like, this is tough to cast into. This is tough to do whatever. Hey, pick them up for a minute. Let me just row you down, you know, take a breather, enjoy the scenery, you know, get their mind off of something else. Get their mind off of them struggling or them being tired for just a moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. Is I definitely bring the whole team mentality to it. I'm like, hey, you know, let's stop. Let's get some water. I'm not gonna say, you need some water. You need to sit down.
You need a rest. You're tired.
I'm gonna be like, you know what? Let's chill for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, find a nice little shady spot, anchor up, pull out some waters, some Gatorades, Cokes, whatever.
Yeah, you know, take a breather, talk about something else. You know, pull out some snacks. Yeah, exactly, dude. How many times has a snack like made the morale just go up in the boat?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and some water, you know, cold water and some snacks that usually just boost morale. Where you're like, all right, cool guys, we just joke around for a minute. No fishing is happening unless you're that guy who wants to fish the whole time, which we have. But
they're there. But you know what? You can usually get them to start talking about themselves, take a break, drink some water, sit in the shade. Enjoy the scenery, you know, stop and smell the flowers.
I try and do that move a lot, like stop in the shade.
Yep.
I do that as much as possible. Like, hey, let's take a little shade break for a minute while we got it. You know, let's stop in the shade and take a breather.
Or get everybody to get out and maybe take a piss.
Yeah, exactly. Get a little walk around, you know, get some
your
blood
feet
flowing.
wet.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it depends on the client, but a lot of times, you know, they get into like the little tiny rapids that we have.
Oh yeah.
And instead of going to the best fishing spot, I'll hit them hard.
Yeah, and just get them a little wet,
get
wake
them a little
them up.
splash.
Yeah, that's a pro move. Pro move right there.
They're just like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, and boom, wake up.
But you got to read your clients. For that. You can't be taking 85-year-old man blasting them through the whitewater. That's not cool.
So I mean, that's a really good question and a tough question to answer. You know, some people just can't keep the faith and don't want to do it, but you know, hopefully we answered some of it.
Well, I think the last part of that is kind of tough is if you have somebody that just straight up doesn't want to be there.
Yeah,
that's hard to manage.
Oh yeah.
You mostly just got to keep it lighthearted, keep them joking.
Yeah, keep talking to them. You know, if they're not fishing or whatever, just start talking to them, ask them questions. You know, and all of a sudden you blew by a mile of river and they didn't. You know, it's like.
And maybe the river will give one up to them.
Yeah, you know, but we're hanging out, we're talking, you know, we're still fishing, we're having a good time. It's the experience, you know. It's not necessarily just like, hey, we're not catching fish. It's the whole experience.
Well, that's the beauty of float fishing, especially, is like you got something to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Whole time.
Yeah.
So book a
great.
float, not a walk.
Great question. Real great question. But so this podcast, we're actually going to do, we're not experts on this, but this kind of our experiences. And I have a bunch written down, Dane. I kind of showed you, but
perfect. Let's get into it.
We're going to talk a little bit about dry fly fishing. Again, we're not experts. We don't have an expert on the podcast right now. But, and a lot of this is learned from other people as well and from ourselves, our own experimentation. Some of it learned from others, mentors or whatever. But, the reason why we kind of wanted to talk about this, I got to go back to my notes just a little bit because here we go. So Dane and I kind of, we were floating the other evening. I got done with a trip and Dane was like, hey man, let's float afterwards. Just leave your boat in the water. Let's run. Cool, man. Let's do it. And I told him kind of how it was that morning. Oh man, dude, they're coming up and eating the hopper. It was good. And we had a little overcast that day, but, we were fishing. We started floating. We had a bunch of hopper takes right off the bat. And it was sick. It was awesome to watch. It was
great. It was badass.
Real tight to the bank, just big fish moving out from the bank, eating hoppers. And we were also fishing water that nobody really looks at too much. We were trying to do that, which is a good tactic, if the river's been
also
hit pretty
works.
hard. Yeah.
There's a lot of fish in this river, so they can't all be in the same spot.
Yeah, exactly. And we switched up, and I was just kind of like, you know what, dude, I got a dry rig running. Let's check it out, man. If they're eating hoppers, let's see what happens. And got a couple takes here and there, moved a couple nice fish, and pulled over for a minute. And I started tinkering as I do, and I was like, man, I think we need to change it up. I think we need to change our bugs just a little bit. I was throwing a stimmy and a little caddis, and I was like, man, I think I want to go caddis to a little mayfly or a little baetis or something. And I won't tell you exactly what bugs we were using because they're kind of a little secret. But, we saw some bugs bouncing around. It wasn't crazy, but we did a little tinkering. And, man, all of a sudden, I don't know if it was time of day or if it was bugs or what it was.
I think it's water temperature.
Could be water temp.
That's what I think.
But all of a sudden, man, it just lit up. And we weren't seeing a ton of fish rising. This was the thing. We weren't seeing fish jumping everywhere. We were just like, screw it. Let's screw around a little bit, see what happens. And that evening turned into, I think, the best dry fly fishing I've ever had on the Gunnison.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
It was absolutely insane.
It was bonkers.
And, it was kind of, we started thinking about it, and, Dane and I like to really talk about what's happening, what we're doing to our rigs, and what we think is going on. We like to think, kind of that scientific aspect to it.
We'll change it real quick, too.
Oh, yeah. And we did. It was like, nope, this isn't working. Let's change it. And we ended up putting on a caddis and a little baetis, and we actually changed that baetis color one time.
Yeah.
And 2 dry flies. And then all of a sudden it was just like lights out. It was every cast.
Oh, yeah. It was constant.
It was insane.
For the next, 6 miles from there?
It was just
crazy.
It was bonkers, man. And it was just like baseball, just a couple hits, you're done, a couple fish, you're out, change up, let's keep fishing. And, at one point you're even like, oh, I'm going to fish your rod. I want to fish your rig because it's working. It was like, it was a team effort though. It wasn't that I had it figured out. It was just like, found the right thing.
Well, that night I never took the dry dropper off my rod. We just put it in the rod holder and just took turns fishing yours because you had switched up.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, well, these are 2 dries. Let's just keep fishing these. But, again, it was kind of like, I don't know if it was water temp, if it was time of day, if it was that cloud cover we had earlier that day or what it was. But it was one of those things where it was just like, man, we're not really seeing fish rise. They're rising to our hopper.
Yeah. They're looking up.
Oh, yeah, they were looking up. But what if we go dries and see what happens?
Might as well.
And it worked out. And that's kind of where this podcast started, where it was like, hey, man, we need to talk about some dries and talk about, how we fished them that night, kind of how we fish them with clients or whatever, and what we started doing differently. Where it was like, the thing we started thinking about too, we were throwing real light hopper droppers, like real small hopper to 1 dropper.
Yeah.
And no one's doing that.
No.
No one's been doing that on the Gunnison.
No.
I'm not trying to give away too many secrets, but we were thinking outside the box a little bit.
A little bit. And it's fun to throw.
Oh, it's easy to throw too.
Yeah.
You know, you can get it tight to the bank.
Put it everywhere.
Yeah, you can put it wherever you want. And, you know, this isn't – we didn't come up with this. You know, this isn't – we just started –
an original idea here.
We just started screwing around with our rigs. And this is where this podcast kind of came from. So we're going to talk about, you know, some dry fly techniques, I would say, just kind of what we do. I know you have some ideas, and obviously I have a shitload written down.
Yeah, you got
I have like 6 pages.
Quite a thing going on.
And I got to kind of remember where I have everything. I kind of have an outline, but I'm going to be going back and forth. But, I mean, to sum up dry fly fishing, if you haven't dry fly fished or just getting into fly fishing, dry fly fishing is the epitome of fly fishing.
That's what you think of.
Yeah.
You know,
that's what everyone sees. You get to throw a bug out that floats on top of the water, and you get to see a fish come up and eat it.
In fact, you know, most never evers, they're like, what? That sinks?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I don't get it.
Like, this is fly fishing,
I
thought.
Yeah, I don't understand. But it is, you know, it is one of those things where it's like everyone gets into it once they see that fish come up.
Absolutely.
That's what hooked me.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
dude.
throwing poppers for bass when I was growing up.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It was like, this is awesome. You know, this is what I want to do.
You get to watch them eat it. There's no snagging a rock with a dry fly.
No, exactly. You can fish it anywhere. That's one of the great parts about it.
Awesome.
And a lot of people, you know, here's the thing that happens with people who think about dry fly fishing. They want a prolific hatch.
Yeah.
They are waiting for a hatch to throw dry flies. You know, and we didn't quite see a hatch the other day. Well, there was some caddis bouncing here and there.
But not a hatch.
No, it wasn't like a big green drake hatch. It
or
wasn't
a Mother's Day caddis.
Exactly. It wasn't Mother's Day caddis hatch. It wasn't these things. It was just happen chance we threw the dries and they eat. So one thing I kind of have written down is you don't necessarily need a prolific hatch to fish dry flies.
True.
You know, you can, as Matt Miller would say, tease them up. You know, you can tease them up to the surface. Another thing he says, I don't know where he got it from, but fish don't look down. You know, fish have to look up.
We got to.
And that's one of those things, you know, where I wanted to debunk that a little bit, where you don't need a prolific hatch to throw dry flies.
Yeah, and I think that one of the main things that I've been thinking about is that when you start to find fish sitting in shallow water, and you can kind of use that little dry dropper to find this happening, is when they're sitting in shallow water and they got to move 6 inches to eat a dry. You know, that's different than them, you know, hunkering down, eating nymphs in the bottom of a big run.
Definitely.
You know, so you can kind of start to, and that's where the tease it up thing comes in, because it's like, dude, you know, he's only got to move 6 inches. If you can get it right,
oh yeah,
he's going to be more willing to come up and eat that.
Definitely. You know, and they don't have to expend a ton of energy, but you still need to put it there.
Oh yeah, you got to get it there.
If those fish are tight to the bank, you can't be 3 feet off the bank and expect to catch a fish.
They're not going to move for that.
You know, and after that night, we kind of started thinking pretty hard about our dry fly fishing.
Pretty hard.
And, you know, there's going to be, I know one guy in particular who's going to talk a little shit about this one, but,
yeah.
You know, I mean, we had a couple days off in a row, and we decided we'd just kind of fish dry flies and see what would happen. And we did well, and we were finding them in different areas. You know, we were finding them in shallow water. We were catching fish in 4 inches of water, you know, nice fish.
Yeah, big fish that you can't even see sitting there, but they're there.
Oh, definitely. So there is technique. You know, you definitely have to be tight to the bank at times and hit your spots, hit your pockets, make sure you get good drifts. You know, and with the caddis we were throwing, you know, you can kind of skate a little bit, and that's where that tease it up comes in. You know, you can skate that caddis a little bit and
just
tease them.
Watch what a real caddis does.
Yep, it bounces.
He doesn't sit there.
You know, and we can get into kind of our rigs a tad. There's some things we don't want to give away. We'll tell you that right now. There's definitely some things we don't want to give away because those are things you need to pay for to see. You know, and again, this isn't just this isn't our technique. This is stuff that we've learned from other people as well. But we started learning, you know, a little bit kind of how these fish are sitting and what bugs we need to be throwing and how we need to place those bugs down. And, we saw a lot of fish coming up. We started talking about, the fish coming up and eating that mayfly, just sipping.
Yeah.
Just coming up and sipping that may. And then the caddis, they'd crush.
Yeah.
They'd come up and crush that caddis once it bounces a little bit.
Well, I mean, you can think about it scientifically.
Exactly.
Like what's happening? What do you see? Mayflies just sitting on the water, cruising down. Caddis bounce.
Yeah.
So
it's easier to sip a may.
easier to sip a
come
may.
Up.
You got to smoke a caddis to hit
exactly, because they're moving.
So,
and we kind of figured out a little bit of that, and that was just us talking about it. Like, it's interesting, how these fish are coming up for that little mayfly or that baetis, you know, and just sipping it. And you'd see you barely see them just come up and just inhale it.
And it's happened on my guide trips is where, you think you can see these fish eat off the surface, but a lot of times my clients will not see a dry fly eat because it's so subtle, especially on the bigger fish for the most part. They'll come and just like inhale a bunch of water with the fly.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
Just barely poke their little nose up out of the water.
Oh, for sure. It's cool to watch.
It's really cool to watch when you can actually see it.
So kind of about our rig, again, I'm not going to go into everything, but off the boat that day, the last couple of days, I've been throwing a 7.5 foot 3X leader.
That's what I've been throwing.
And that's all mono or nylon or whatever. And then going, a section of tippet to our back fly. Yeah. Section of tippet.
A section.
We'll call it that. And using, again, nylon or mono because it floats.
Dude, I use fluorocarbon a lot.
Do you?
But it depends on the fly.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems to pull down those flies a tad. Just because that fluoro does sink.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before on Tippet podcast, but that day, we were throwing a 7.5 foot leader. It was just a little bit easier to get accurate out of the boat, than throwing that 9 foot.
Because we're not throwing huge casts either here.
We're running that boat pretty close to the bank, but we're, throwing short casts, trying to be as accurate as we can, trying to get it under bushes, in little pockets, real tight to the bank, as close as we can get. And so that 7.5 foot 3X had a little bit more oomph to it than a 9 foot might.
Well, I like what you said the other day to one of our buddies is, and it was actually pertaining to hopper dropper, but the same goes for these dry flies kind of, is you're fishing it like where you'd put a streamer.
Yeah. It's cool because you get to see fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good – I forgot I said that.
That's a good one, and that helped him out to understand what exactly we were trying to get him to do because he's not a guide, but he's a good fisherman.
Yeah. It's like, hey, put the hopper dropper where you throw a streamer. Try and get that hopper dropper where you throw a streamer.
Because,
look for the pockets.
Sense.
Yeah, it does. And, those fish are there. That is a great point, but that 7.5 foot definitely helps. Walk weighting, it might be different. We can go into that here in a little bit. I kind of have some.
I've got some ideas.
Yeah, I got a little chart.
I grew up dry fly fishing.
Yeah, you did. But so we can go into flies just a little bit. I know you brought this up when we were texting back and forth about this podcast, but kind of natural versus synthetic materials, and kind of what that does for you and how that's going to act on the water. I don't know if you want to go into that now or you want me to start or how you want to do it.
Well, I can just say that, there's a lot of dry flies, even still, that are tied with natural materials. There's starting to be way more and more like little microfoam patterns and things like that are all synthetic. But like, take an elk hair caddis, for example. It's hackle feather, usually super fine animal dubbing.
Yep.
And deer or elk hair for the whole thing. And, that's why on those type of flies, it matches the color real well already because, it's naturally occurring.
Yeah.
But I think the main part about it is picking your floating for it and coming prepared.
It's true. We can go into that here.
Yeah. I don't want to jump ahead, but like.
I would say like my rig, and me, I'm a foam guy. I've talked about it on the podcast a lot, but it's my first fly, if I'm throwing dry flies, is usually going to have foam on it.
Mine too.
I need that thing floating all day.
Yeah.
I want it floating all day, and rarely do I have to change out that first fly.
Yeah.
Unless it's just getting smoked all day, which hopefully is what you want.
That's what's supposed to happen.
And, if you go and listen to Patrick Blackdale and I podcast about our top 10 flies, I do talk about this caddis I was throwing. you got to go and do the research. I'm not going to say it again. But I do talk about this caddis that I throw, and it does have some foam on it. But I do, like, every dry fly is going to have some synthetic and some, like most of them nowadays are going to have some, some synthetic material, wing material,
especially
or something.
all the new ones coming
exactly.
out.
But then, like, I like the synthetic materials a little bit more because they shed that water a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially that McFly line, like wing posts and stuff like that, they shed that water better. And that's kind of why I fish those. That's a garage door.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. So, I mean, you do make a good point where it does depend on floating. I still want to talk about flies just for a second.
Well, yeah. No, totally. I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No, you're good.
But, like, also rubber legs on flies.
Yep.
That's obviously a man-made material.
Yeah. And
it really can help balance and keel a fly and help it float because it naturally just wants to float and it'll straighten it out.
Yeah.
Even sometimes you'll throw like a rubber-legged fly and it'll land sideways or upside down. You just like move it a little bit. And
it's like almost
like a
cataract.
Yeah.
It has those those pontoons on the side keeping it up.
Exactly.
It kind of helps with that. I can't think of the word right now, but it helps keep that water displaced a little bit more,
and that's
helps
super
float
helpful.
it. Yeah. And I kind of want to bring that up too. Like a tractor versus natural. Like, are you gonna go a tractor? And we start out the other night throwing in a tractor. We started throwing a stimulator.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite having it. They wanted something a little bit more natural.
They would look at it, but
occasionally,
then they would back up off.
Yeah.
Of it.
And so that's kind of, it depends. I'd say I think it's going to come with, you got to test it out and see what happens.
Every fishery is different too.
Yeah, exactly. And the stimmy I was throwing the other day had foam on it, legs, hackle, wing, all kinds of crap.
Yeah.
It was pretty noisy. And so that could have been part of the problem too. These fish have seen a lot of bugs that are pretty noisy.
Yeah.
And by noisy, I mean just vibrant.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a lot of stuff going on. It doesn't quite look like what they're used to.
Yeah.
And I was trying to tease them up that way, and it wasn't happening. We ended up having to go more natural with it. And it helped. But I think one of those things too is, like, how do you decide, that a tractor or not when you're trying to tease them up if there's not a prolific hatch? It's like you can, again, it's just kind of trial and error.
Exactly.
I think.
Well, that's fishing, right? You got to figure out what they're eating and what you can make them eat. Because like with the attractor, okay, you don't see a prolific hatch, but maybe they're looking up. I'd try it first for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, oh, we need to go really small, natural, hard to see.
Oh, I'm going to try a big one
like,
first.
Let's see if they're going to eat a hopper.
Yeah.
Or a small hopper or something obnoxious.
Yeah, stimmy or, the other day I was throwing a 409.
Yeah, Amy's Ant.
Yeah, something like that. You might be able to tease them up that way. In our case, it wasn't, we had those hopper takes right at the beginning. But once we got onto the dries, it was like, all right, we need to think more natural.
Yeah.
And then we started seeing all the fish.
Well, and also the hopper I was throwing was a little.
It was working.
It wasn't as obnoxious as some hoppers you could throw.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
Before we go into the floating a little bit, let's say there is, a significant hatch. Something going on. We might as well talk about all the dry fly scenarios.
Yeah, totally.
If there is a significant hatch going on, if there is a good caddis hatch or a good mayfly, Baetis, whatever hatch there is, I'd say that's where you get a little bit different. You definitely want to match size and color and profile almost as best as possible. I think that size and profile have a lot to do with it.
Those are the first two that I'm looking at. And then
size and profile.
Then color.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. That's a very good point. I'd say the same with me. So if there is a prolific hatch and it's going on, what they're eating, you know the bug and you have them, in my case, I don't necessarily start out small.
No.
I'm going to throw the biggest I can get away with and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Because that way I can see it, clients can see it, anybody can see it.
And
but
it's cooler. For some reason, when they eat a bigger
it's a lot
fly,
more
it's
fun.
Cooler. I don't know.
It's way more fun. But so with that significant hatch going on, you definitely want to match color and size as best, size, profile, and then color.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
Size,
That's
profile,
the way that I
and
would
color.
do it,
Yeah.
exactly, in that order.
And then you can start, if you start seeing refusals, then you can start sizing down.
Also, watch your tippet.
Yeah, tippet could be a huge thing too. If you're throwing 3X when you need 5 or you need 4, it could be a big thing. And I might be getting refusals these days because I'm throwing 3X still. And I should be throwing 4. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. But, it could be something like that. But, if you're getting refusals, start thinking about those bugs a little more. Okay, maybe I need to size down. And maybe size one of those flies down. If you're a single dry fly guy, it's a little bit tougher for you.
Yeah, and you got to put it in the right spot. There's no real moving it because you're going to try to mend it and you're going to pull it away.
Yeah, I'd say too, one thing I learned in the past, I can't remember where I read this article, but it was kind of about technical dry fly fishing a little bit. If you see, if you're trying to get a big fish and you see that big fish rise, don't immediately cast over him.
Yeah, no.
You'll spook that fish down. He'll sit down. I would say, in my opinion, if there is good hatch or you're seeing a fish rise consistently, watch him for a minute.
Time him.
Yeah, time that fish. Watch how many,
you don't
watch.
have to pull out a stopwatch.
But you know what I mean. Yeah. Watch when he comes up and eats. He's obviously looking at something. Try and time when he comes up and eats. That fish is eating. He's not going to just go down.
No, he's looking up
for
hard.
A minute. Yep. Time him, watch him, and then try and figure out how you're going to place your cast. You don't want to line him.
Yeah,
you don't want to place, and you want to get that cast above him so that it can float down to him or her, whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that fish may be. But watch that fish a little bit, especially if it's a big one and you want to get that fish. That's kind of a tough part. I see. Yeah, Dane's going to disappear. I'll talk for a minute. He's got to use the banyo. But basically, like, what I'm saying is you don't necessarily see a lot of guys who, clients, whoever, avid fishermen, who'll see a fish rise and they'll immediately put it right on that fish's nose and spook it. It's done. It's not going to eat. So what you want to do, if you're floating, it's a little bit different. You still want to try and, as a guide, you're watching downstream constantly. Even as a fisherman, you're watching downstream constantly, kind of through your peripherals, what's happening below you on the banks. But you always want to try and put that fly above that fish so that it can float down to and that fish has time to look at it. Especially when you're walkaway, you don't want to spook a fish right off the bat because you don't have a whole lot of opportunity. So if you see that fish come up, time it, and then place one above him or above that fish and try and get it to come down as naturally as possible. And let those bugs, I'd say this is a big one too, let those bugs pass that fish.
Yeah.
He might have moved down a little bit. Who knows?
Also, they'll come back for it.
They might come back for it. They might turn around and come and hit it. But I'd say let those bugs pass that fish. That way when you go up and cast, you don't line that fish and spook it.
You know what the other good point about that is maybe you didn't hit the cast where you wanted it. You don't want to pick it up from in front of him.
Leave it. Yeah.
Just let it ride. He might move for it or, maybe he just doesn't care about where it is. But just let it pass and then get your next shot. You don't want to pick it up in front of him, and that'll spook him.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
I've seen more clients do that than anything where, like, they don't hit right where they want to hit, and then they pick up, and that fish hunkers down.
That's a big
especially during a big hatch where, it's a green drake hatch or something happening on the Taylor, and you're up there walkway, and you're getting into a lot of fish rising. You see one that you want, and then they cast over it, and they pick up and line that fish and spook it.
And it makes that sound that, like, when you pull it out of the water sometimes.
Oh, yeah. That was great. I like that one.
Dude, we've all heard it.
Yeah, exactly.
And
we all know what it sounds like.
They can hear that in the water.
Oh, yeah.
They got a big lateral line.
Oh, yeah.
They can hear that.
They know.
They're going to be bummed about it.
And so, yeah, those are some kind of good walk wading tips, I guess, too, especially when there's a significant hatch. But if there's not, you can still tease them up. But, if you're seeing those fish rise, make sure you play it right. Don't just go balls deep trying to cast in.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Make sure you're watching that fish just a little bit. So, all right, we'll talk about some maintenance a little bit. Let me see, make sure we covered some of this. We covered most of this, Yeah, all right, we can talk about the maintenance of dry flies a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot. So the hardest, that's a big part. You see, again, I say this a lot, but you do see it. As guides, we see it way more, but you'll see a lot of people go and fish dry flies and don't know how to maintain them. They have a lot of sinking dry flies.
And that ain't going to do it.
No. And that also goes back to what kind of materials you're using on your flies. But Dane and I were, experimenting the other day, and, mine's better. Oh, no, mine's better. Well, try mine, Here, try this one, Try this floating. Try this. Dry this out, do what.
Yeah.
But we were experimenting, trying to figure out what was better and what worked better in different situations or whatever. The hardest thing about dry flies, and I've been starting to tell my clients this, hey, these are dry flies. We got to keep them dry, right?
Yes.
That's the point of a dry fly.
Don't
keep
drown
it dry. Once that fly starts drowning, you're done. You either got to pick up and recast or dry it out or,
do anything but leave it there.
Exactly. Do anything but let it drown.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand the maintenance that ensues with these dry flies. You need to be able to see those dry flies floating. And, sometimes even with size, but you need to be able to see them floating.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it is making sure that they float. And so we'll talk about a little bit about the maintenance. Again, once those flies start sinking, you're no longer throwing dry flies.
I might not go into brands necessarily.
No, that's fine.
But, because I like you said before, we got to have a little bit of a
we got to make our money.
hand.
Yeah. We got to have a leg up on some people. We're in the fish catching business. Again, we want to give you guys the most information possible, but we are in the fish catching business, and the more leg ups we can have, we want them. Yeah. So, again, we're not going to tell you everything, but we'll talk about maintaining them.
Yeah.
I'll talk about a couple points real quick, and I'll let you go into yours.
No,
I'm not trying to steal the show here.
No, dude, you're the host.
I am. So, maintenance starts. I have this written down, but maintenance starts from the moment you tie them on. It doesn't, I see a lot of people again who will tie on a dry fly and forget to put floating on and just cast it.
You're doomed.
And then they're toast. Those dry flies are done.
They're done. Work.
No, they're not going to float anymore. So now you have to dry those flies out and then maintenance them. Or you got to tie on new dry flies. You see people do that all the time. I go, did you put floating on that? What do you mean? Well, just because it has foam on it doesn't mean it's going to float all day.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to give yourself the upper hand as much as possible to keep those flies floating. So it starts from the moment you tie them on. I'm trying to think of how to start this, but I can let you go into it a little bit. Everyone always, know the Luna Quell. A lot of people use that. They use the liquid floating. Yeah, there's all kinds of floating out there. Again, we're not going to go too crazy into them. But there's all kinds of floating out there these days. Everyone's coming up with their new kind of floating. I'll give you a couple things here and there. But let's talk about kind of your process when you tie on a dry fly.
Okay. So at all times in my bag, there's 3 different kinds of floating. You got shake, you got gel, and you got straight liquid. So you could use dry shake, which that ain't no secret. Gink, that ain't no secret. And Flagra, that ain't no secret either. But there's a time and a place for each of them, I think.
There is. I believe that too.
So the other day, I'll just start with this. I heard some kid in the fly shop, and he was talking about the chubby Chernobyl, which is not a secret fly either.
No.
And he's like, I fish it. I just fished it this year, and I couldn't get it to stay up. And it's like, that's interesting because
it's full of foam.
When I throw them, they can hold up an anvil.
Yeah.
But
you can throw 2 pickles underneath those things.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's the thing is that big poly wing holds floating, but it also holds water.
Exactly.
So you need to try to deter the water before you put it in the water.
Yep.
And I personally like to use the liquid on that because it just gets all up in there. And then I dry it off real well before I fish it. I don't just go liquid straight to the water.
Yeah.
Because then it just kind of gets...
And there's a bunch of different liquids out there.
It gets every little fiber, of it that way. That's just the way that I do it. There's, more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah. No, definitely. So, okay, let's talk about this. So, that's your start of your process with that chubby. You like the liquid. I use a loon type product. I use kind of an quell, kind of a gel or a paste.
Like gink or whatever.
Yeah, gink, all those
But
guys.
not gink.
Everyone, it's not gink. Everyone uses something like that for the most part. There's tons of them out there. Orvis makes one. Sims makes one.
They all have them. Yeah.
They all have these, these kind of paste type floatants.
Yeah.
I like to use that. If we're talking about the chubby, I do mine a little bit differently. I like to put a little bit, like maybe a pea size of paste on my fingers, warm it up a little bit, mix it up, and then I try and get every fiber I possibly can.
Yeah.
And I get the foam, I get the dubbing, the legs, everything.
We also look insane when we're dressing a chubby. We got to comb out.
Yeah. And I comb mine out. I like to have as much surface area and spread all that poly wing around.
I pick that fro out.
I comb my chubbies. I comb.
Get the afro sheen.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the afro pick
it out. Pick out that afro a little bit.
But that's not necessarily dry fly fishing. That's hopper fishing. So
dry flies. Okay, here's kind of like I've been thinking about this a lot because we've been talking about how we're going to do this podcast.
Yeah.
But what I'll do is I'll tie my flies on, everything good, and then I'll grease them up.
That's how I do it.
I don't try and put less is more.
Exactly.
In my opinion. If you can just barely coat everything, instead of, you see people too just grease them up and then they don't float.
Yeah.
And you got to wear off that floating.
Down.
Yeah. So less is more when it comes to floating, I'd say.
Well, especially
with the paste.
If you're throwing a true dry fly, you want to just get enough on each fiber.
Yeah.
You don't want to bog it down.
Yeah. You don't want to cake it.
And so, and I don't use the liquid on like an elk hair caddis or parachute Adams. I use more of a gel because the greasier you can get it, the longer it's going to repel water. Eventually it wears off.
And we started playing around with this, but we'll go into that here in a minute. So after I grease them up, I'll actually debarb my hooks. Yeah. Even if I'm throwing a 2-fly rig, you can still debarb it. You rarely lose that fly.
No.
It's not going to come off,
It
really.
doesn't do that.
But I debarb my hooks. And the reason I do that, I don't debarb every hook. Again, I'm in the fish catching business. I don't debarb every hook, but for dry flies, I do. The reason why is those fish like to eat the dry flies.
They eat them hard.
They eat them. They'll try and swallow them. They'll eat them. So the easier you can make it on yourself and the fish to get those out. Nymphs, they don't, eat all the time. I know I'm going to probably, I don't know, not many people email us, but I might get some emails about that.
Yeah.
You should probably debarb every hook. You're probably right. But, sometimes I got to catch fish.
But, for us, it's sweet when they eat it and then they get off.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's a tough day, like, unfortunately,
you want that barb.
We're going to keep them wet. Yeah. We're going to take care of the fish, but we need to land that fish.
We do. But with dry flies, I debarb them all. Because if they get them good, you want to be able to get it out as smoothly as possible. And so let's say you got that debarbed hook and I pull it out, I'm going to blow that fly out. I'm not going to treat it. I'm not going to dry shake it immediately. If I just have maybe 1 or 2 fish on that, I'm just going to keep blowing it out.
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden that fly doesn't float anymore.
Yeah.
And we were playing around with all these different ideas.
We're just seeing how long we could go before we had to treat it.
Until we had to treat it again. And so, we'd false cast it a bunch and dry it out and cast it in. If it starts sinking, it'd be like, man, now we got to treat it.
It's done.
Or we got to change our flies. And so what we'd first try before we change those flies is we treat it again.
Yeah.
The thing, too, is what I want to get to, but we were very hesitant to use shake.
Yeah, absolutely.
The shake, you get a couple good casts, couple good fish, and then it's toast. I feel like that shake almost, once you get a couple fish, that shake just soaks up all that water.
It does, and I think that is the big thing about dry shake is it's absolutely an afterthought. I've seen a lot of people put on flies and then shake it before they even get it wet, and that just isn't going to work. It's a dessicant, not a water repellent.
There you go. That's a great idea.
So,
yeah.
It's going to...
It just dries them out a little bit.
It's like the silica gel in your beef jerky.
Yeah.
Dude.
It dries them out. It doesn't necessarily keep them dry. It just dries them out.
Yeah.
So, if they are floating and you want to keep that fly going, then, you can shake it. But shake is our last resort.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It's an afterthought, for
So
sure.
what we do, if that fly starts sinking a little bit, we blow it out, try and get as dry as possible. And then I'd actually, put some more paste on
That's
there.
what I do.
Yeah. I'd put a little bit more paste and let it sit for a minute, and then I'd start casting again. If it's sinking again, that fly might be toast, or if I want to keep it going, I might shake it a couple times.
It'll work again if you put it back in the box and like let it dry out, because sometimes they're just waterlogged.
And honestly, like, it sounds dumb, but the best thing, is the sun.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the sun dries it out.
Yeah. Not too much.
No, but, but if
yeah.
you just leave it out of the water for a minute.
Well, especially on the boat. I mean, I've got like a fly patch. I'll just like set it there.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just put it on the fly patch.
And then I'll go back.
Exactly. Then you could go back to that, re-grease it, and it's good to go again.
Yeah.
For a couple more fish.
Yeah.
You want to try and get the life out of those fish as much as you possibly can.
I mean, I'm not going to throw
out of those flies.
I'm not going to throw a chubby that's been sitting on there for 2 months.
No.
The legs are going to fall off.
Yeah.
But,
But so dry shake is our last resort. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute. But I'll give you a little bit of a dry shake hack. I think people are catching onto. They're selling it in fly shops now. I don't think it's a big secret.
Yeah.
We got snowmobiles in the garage below us right now.
Let's go.
What are they doing? It's not snowing outside.
Rabbit.
It's August. Who knows what they're up to. But so the dry shake, like once you finish off your dry shake and all you have in there are those little rocks, like the silica gel you're talking about.
Yep.
What I do is I buy, and I don't think I'm really blowing anything up. Do you think I am?
No.
Okay.
No.
They sell them in the fly
way.
shop.
You can, if you fly fish, you know what he's going to say.
It's called Feather Dry, and it's a big jug, and you can buy it. Basically what it's used for is drying off the feathers on arrows.
Yeah.
Are they called fletchings? I should know this.
Dude, I
should know
the wrong
this.
guy.
Yeah, I should know this. But it basically dries off the feathers on arrows for like a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
And it's the same shit. It dries out the feathers.
Yeah.
So I basically use that, and I've had one for I don't know who knows how long, and you just add a little bit into your old dry shake jug.
Yeah.
And you just add a little bit.
That's a great hack. And you know what? Another one that's real similar, they sell in fly shops for the most part, is frog's fanny with the brush applicator.
That's
because
there's
no rocks in the frog's fanny. But like say you have the loon dry shake, you can dump the whole frog's fanny in there or just a little bit, whatever.
Yeah.
But then you have the powder and the rocks, and that's because the dry shake that you buy, it's like 12 good shakes.
Yeah, there's so much in there.
It's like
but if you can just add a little bit, I use like a little paper funnel, and I just add a little bit just to coat those rocks. Because if you add too much, like you do it, that's the first thing I did is like I added up like, oh, this is how it comes in the store. A couple shakes, dude, and it's gone. You're like, what the hell happened? All your shake is gone.
You just like pull it out with the fly.
Exactly.
It's all on the fly. Your fly's just a snowball.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got to blow it out, and all of a sudden you lost all your shake.
And that's all just chilling.
But the feather dry is great. You can add just a little at a time, and it's a big jug. It's like $8 and $9.
Yeah.
And you get a big jug of it, and it's just the powder. It's pretty much frog's fanny.
Yeah.
It is.
I don't know.
It's got to be the same shit.
I don't know what works better.
It's got to be the same
I've used
shit.
them both. Yeah, it's basically the same. Gotta be.
But I guess another hack that I'm thinking about is I see this all the time too. When you hand them the dry shake to dry their flies out, and they close the lid. Oh, that's a no-no.
Crimp your tippet.
Yeah, you close the lid, you crimp the tippet. Put your thumb over it. Put that fly in there and shake it.
You know what I've noticed, because I've used them both, is the Shimasaki dry shake. The hole is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
Because I got like bear paws, so my thumb will cover the hole on the dry shake that comes from loon. But the Shimazaki hole's a lot smaller, and it has a little foam pad.
Yeah.
I still don't use that, but it's way easier to cover.
Definitely. That's a great idea. Those little bottles, if you got those laying around, because my thumb doesn't cover the whole loon hole.
Yeah.
On those dry shake bottles.
Yeah.
It won't cover the whole hole.
And that is another good way to lose your powder.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
But that's a little pro tip for you there. Another thing, I've used my shirt to dry flies. I've had paper towels, and try and squeeze out all that water. There is a new thing.
I saw the mushroom patch.
I have it written down, joke inserted here.
Maybe if somebody gives it to me, I'll try it. But
the loon is making a mushroom patch or something to dry your flies out. I have no idea.
Dude, but I was thinking about that the other night when I saw that. It would be a lot different if you were you were not a guide. It's like, sure, dude, let's use the mushroom patch. I don't have to do it for 2 people every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'd like to see one in person.
I just don't know how that thing's not going to get waterlogged, and now all of a sudden you're just kind of dropping the hat, squeezing your flies together.
Some people use like those little leather chamois.
Well, dude, you've
dry
seen
those out.
Okay, I keep using the elk hair caddis. Everybody knows it. But, dude, you can bunch those elk hairs up, and now all of a sudden it looks stupid.
Yeah, then they don't float right.
So it's like, okay, are you making more maintenance
fluff
for yourself?
them up. I always fluff my flies, too, when I grease them.
Dude,
I fluff them up.
I get in there and just, like, start tinkering with hackle fibers.
Oh, yeah,
everything. I moved around. I want it to work.
But, again, all these processes will work for a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to have to change your flies and put on a new one.
So at the local fly shop, you should probably buy them by the dozen.
Yeah, exactly. Buy a lot of them or tie a lot of them.
Coming from the dude that worked there, nobody likes the guy that buys 2 flies.
Yeah. Nobody likes that guy. But, I mean, to how we fished them the other day, dude, and we were catching so many fish. Like, we probably went through, half a dozen flies.
Yeah, not bad.
Trying to change them all
for
out.
How many fish were
and we didn't lose many. We maybe lost a couple.
I think 2.
But, we still had to change them out because they just quit floating. All these processes will work for a short amount of time.
And really, really focusing on not drowning your dries. And the thing that I started telling my clients that I don't know if it really helped, but it makes me feel better is be deliberate with everything that you do with fly fishing.
Yeah.
You don't just let your flies sit there for no good reason.
No.
You don't cast for no good reason.
No.
Everything you do needs to have a little bit of a purpose.
And that it's so hard though, but it's like I wish people could watch us in the front of the boat or rowing or whatever and just be like, whoa, that dude's not fishing. It's because I'm waiting for my next opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to drown my flies out. My flies are either in my hand and I'm blowing them off, getting ready. And I know that sounds weird, but I'm blowing my flies. I'm getting ready. My clients the other day, hey, can you give me a blow job real quick? Like, yeah, no problem, man. I'll blow them out for you.
Sound like good guys.
Yeah, they're awesome guys, and they can fish, and we caught a lot of fish on dries.
Yeah.
But, we pick our battles with dry flies or any fishing out of the boat or any fish you walk waiting. We pick our battles.
Dude, you see it with nymphing. They'll snag bottom for no good reason, lose a fly. And it's like, well, now we don't have that good opportunity because you don't have a fly.
And dries are different, too, where it's like, hey, I need these flies to float. I'm not going to fish the fastest water. I'm not going to – if I can't fish this bank, I'm not going to cast to that bank. If it's too fast, I won't cast.
Well, here's the thing that keeps happening, and I just want to bring it up briefly. But you'll see a hole that's above a rock, and then there's a hole below a rock. Yeah. That requires 2 casts. Mm-hmm. You don't let it go over the rock and just get absolutely smashed underwater.
Because then they can't see their flies. Up. Yeah. No, it won't. Especially with that recirc or whatever, if there's an eddy behind that rock. Yeah.
Pull it down. Yeah. And then like 90% of the time, you're going to snag something down there. Yeah. And now you blew both holes.
What I started teaching people, too, out of the boat with dry fly fishing is just like, look, just get it close, give it a couple good drifts or a good drift, pull it out, cast again. Yeah. Just keep trying to get it closer every time. You don't have to let it just keep going because they will drown. Yeah. And so float fishing, you can pick up and miss some water. It's not that big of a deal. Pick up, dry your flies, cast again. Give it a couple false casts, put it back in. And that's hard to teach. But if you can just kind of, it's fast and furious. The dry fly fishing is just fast and furious, trying to get it on the bank, let it drift for a sec, pull it out, cast again, pull it out, cast again.
And then there's some real long, nice slicks that require you to leave it a little bit. But that's not like, don't mend and just let it get ripped underwater for 50 feet. That is a different thing.
That happens quite often.
Yeah.
And the boat is different. I don't want to, if you got more process that you want to go through or whatever. Keep
rocking it all.
Okay. If I'm missing stuff, then let me know.
Not that I can think of.
But, I kind of want to talk about a little bit kind of walk wading versus floating, just a tad. I know we have touched on a lot of it, and we can just kind of hit some bullets here and there. But floating, you know, like we've talked about, we do a lot of float fishing. That's why we talk about it so much. But I want to incorporate the walk wading because this is a full.
No, totally. Not everybody gets to float every day.
Yeah.
And they don't have, you know, buddies that can row them. And I, like I was saying earlier, I think we take that for granted a little bit.
We do. We're pretty lucky to be able to do this.
But we both started off only doing walk wading, you know, fishing by ourselves, fishing with family, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, walk wading, I've touched on a lot of these. I'll just kind of skim over some of these bullet points. But walk wading, you know, you are targeting to some rising fish if you can find them. It's very visual. You want to watch those fish come up and you want to try and put it there. We don't have to go too far again into that. You know, the fish can be put down, blah, blah, blah.
Easily.
Floating, you know, we're still looking for rising fish. I brought that up a little bit, kind of out of your peripheral. You're looking for rising fish. The guide's always looking for rising fish. You're always looking for rising fish.
Yep.
But we're just kind of placing those flies in fishy areas and trying to tease them, you know, and get them to come up.
And that just comes from being able to read water.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most crucial parts of fly fishing that often gets overlooked by people that are first starting, because there's a million videos on how to cast and mend and roll cast and do all these special casting, but you know, you can fish the middle of the river in a riffle all day and like maybe they're not sitting there.
Yeah.
And you're doing it just right, but you're not catching anything.
Yeah.
So.
And so, I mean, sometimes, you know, that's a great thing about floating, you know, versus walk wading is you just cover a lot more ground.
You get a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what you know, you see there's always more river down. You know, there's always more coming.
Yep.
That's a great part about it. You know, so that's kind of that walk wading versus the floating. I think I have some more bullet points written down about it here. I definitely do. I would say, you know, walk wading, your leader length might change a little bit.
Definitely.
You know, you might go 9-foot leader.
I definitely would.
12-foot leader. It depends on how softly you want those flies to. And this is
depends on your water too.
Exactly. I was going to say that we're fishing a lot of freestone, but we do fish some tailwater here and there. But there are some areas, you know, I mean, like the Henry's Fork. You know, where it's like you can't do a lot of these methods.
Not an expert there, but
not at all.
It requires some serious attentiveness to what you're doing.
And there's different leader types to do that. You know, who is it? Harvey. I can't remember his whole name right now. I should. You know, like the Harvey Check.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember his full name right now.
What is that guy's
I should
name?
know, man. He's like the dry fly dude.
Then there's Renee Harrop.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get into something I don't know. But there's lots of different leader types. I was building dry fly leaders for a while.
Yeah.
And trying to fish them. And out of a boat, it didn't work at all.
But they were perfect for something like the Henry's Fork.
Exactly. You know, they'd land soft. Flies would land down soft. It was almost like a 12-foot leader.
Yeah.
You know, and everything looked perfect. Everything was great. So there's different leader styles for walk wading and floating. We talked about, you know, fishing a shorter leader, a little bit more stout, where you can just really pinpoint areas and get it in there and cast. You know, you're an operator up there.
Absolutely.
You know, you're just operating, man. You're just trying to put it in there. But, you know, in walk wading too, you know, you're trying to cast to certain areas that look fishy. You know, you're trying to cast into those riffles and pockets and holes and cast those rising fish. But, you know, in a boat, most of the time you're always casting kind of towards the bank.
Yeah.
And you're trying to put them on the bank.
Yeah, and occasionally there's that little shelf in the middle of the river or whatever. But, you know.
I think a lot of people miss that point, too, where it's like, if you're walk wading, like whenever I go out on a walk wading trip and teach people, you know, how to cast from the bank or whatever, we always start close. Hey, we want to start close and work our way out because a lot of these fish will sit right at our feet and we don't even know.
Yeah.
So if you go out there trying to throw dry flies, like look at the bank first, you know, cast towards the bank and fish on the bank first and then work your way out, you know, to the riffles or to the slicks or wherever.
Fish it comprehensively.
Yeah. Look at what's going on.
Absolutely.
You know, don't just get out there and go, all right, fish are in the middle of the river. Because most times they're sitting right at your feet.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, you know, you'd be surprised how many fish will sit right next to the boat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they go, well, you're too close to the bank. Well, you know, fish it on the bank. They'll eat it. You know, they'll come up and eat it.
Especially if you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing it right. But kind of just, you know, pick your battles a little bit. I've definitely had some, you know, some guide trips on the Taylor where we've been walk wading. And, you know, we do have that prolific hatch and we can spook a lot of fish. But, you know, there's fish rising all around you. You know, they're everywhere. And people don't understand that, you know, where there's fish all in this river. And it's cool seeing that big hatch because then you can see where all the fish are.
Yeah.
And you're like, I didn't realize there was a fish 5 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a fish behind me.
Well, and then it helps you get the opportunity to really fish to all of them. Because, you know, if you fish them close, then the middle, then far, okay, that can increase your yield of fish quite a bit.
Oh, definitely. You know, and this is a tough thing I was thinking about too, you know, the maintenance on your flies floating or walking. You know, do you think that you're going to drown? I think you almost drown your flies more walking.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can't get as good at drifts all the time.
Yeah, especially when you're going that way upstream to the fish.
Yep.
Like, you have to let it drift back to you. It's not like, oh, okay, we missed that one. Let's go to the next. It's like, no, you got to let it drift all the way to you. And that goes back to what I said. Even if it's not the right cast, you got to let it ride. Yeah,
let it ride. You know, keep it going because you never know. I mean, we were stopped today in a little shelf, you know, and I was trying to teach this lady how to, you know, wait on her back cast and send that line, load that line, and shoot it out.
Yeah.
And I was showing her, you know, what you can do. I was pulling out a bunch of line, how we want to do it, and sending it way up. Just saying we don't even need a mend here. We can just strip right in. It's coming right to us, you know, all this stuff. And just letting it go. And a fish ate right next to the boat because I let it go all the way to the boat.
Yeah,
and a fish ate right next to the boat while I was showing her how to do it. And, I mean, it's just that she wasn't letting it go. You know, she thought, all right, they only have to be right here. Yeah. No, they're everywhere.
Totally.
You got to pick your battles and, I mean, persistent. You got to just keep, you know,
Absolutely.
Like I said, you're operating. You're trying to pick apart the entire river.
You have to look at it all. But that being said, you know, growing up for me, I fished a lot of small creeks. And, you know, creeks you can't even imagine floating. Like, they're just way too small. But, you know, the fish are a little bit more willing to eat dry flies in there. I think because they're shallower, they got a little bit more of a shorter season, and they're just more aggressive.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of this stuff, I think, applies differently on your different fisheries. So, you know, if you're fishing a small creek, you know, you might be able to size down that leader, go a little bit more obnoxious with your flies, you know, and see, because a lot of times on a small creek, they'll eat ridiculous flies.
Right. That's a great point.
And that makes it really fun. It's like, oh my God, he just ate a size 2 stonefly, and he's only 8 inches long. You can almost throw
a lot of attractors, you know?
And it's great. It's a fun time.
Yeah. No, that's a great point that we didn't really talk about too much is the small creek dry fly fishing
That's how I learned. And, you know, we weren't throwing anything special. Nobody was trying to match a hatch. It's like you go out all day and throw a Royal Wolf.
Yeah.
And usually it works all day.
You see fish.
So,
yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's a great point on those small creeks, you know, especially if you're fishing up high mountain streams.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be as picky, you know, or those fish aren't as picky. Is what I mean.
It's a great place to start learning.
It is. And I've done a lot of trips like that with little kids where you're like, hey, man, we're going to go fish a high mountain brookie stream.
And they catch them.
Yeah. And
they're
you're
not
just like,
huge, but
here's a parachute Adams, man. Have at her.
Yeah, exactly.
Just get it in the water and you'll see fish. All you got to do is get it in the water. So that's a great point, too, to kind of learn a little bit about that, you know, and just trying to get that fish to eat, you know, and you can put those little fish down, too.
Oh, you definitely can.
Yeah.
If you're slapping the water, they're used to for things to try to eat them, so they're looking out for stuff that's gonna, you know.
Yeah, you can be a little bit more lenient with your fly selection on those small creeks.
You still don't want to be just beating up water constantly, and you still want to work your way out
diligently.
You know, work the whole thing.
Yeah,
you don't have to because usually they're sitting everywhere in there, and you can kind of just whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're really looking to fish it like a professional, you work your way out every hole.
And it definitely depends on the creek you're fishing too. You know, I mean, I've fished creeks that are a foot wide.
Yeah.
You know, and I've fished creeks that are 10 feet wide.
A little bit harder to work your way out.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, I'm just trying to get one drift just kind of in there.
Let me just not hit the weeds.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying not to get snagged on the weed.
Yeah.
And then I'll be good. So, I mean, you don't have, but I've seen that too, you know, where there's some pressure on those small creeks and you definitely have to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And maybe even go that dry dropper rig or something.
Yep.
I don't have a ton more stuff written down, but I feel like we've covered quite a bit.
Totally.
But I mean, it's just, It's hard, man. And but I've been doing that with clients. Here's a great point, okay, for guides out there or people trying to teach their family members or kids how to fish. You know, I brought it up in the beginning, but I started dry fly fishing.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that gets you going. That's the best thing you can do is watch a fish come up and eat a dry fly. So I've been doing that a lot with my beginner clients, you know, as well as seasoned clients, but just, hey, let's watch some fish come up and eat your dry fly. That way you know that there's fish here and that you know that hopefully I've given you all the instruction I possibly can and those fish are coming up and eating those flies. And if you miss, that's on you on that one.
Yeah.
You know, like they actually get to see the fish. So that's kind of a cool aspect, you know, for guiding is, you know, if the dry fly fishing is good or, you know, par, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can throw some dry flies here and there and watch fish come up and eat. And clients get stoked.
There's no mistaking a dry fly eat when you see it.
Yeah, you see it. It's hard to see that indicator and be like, was that a fish? I'm like, I'm not sure. You got to set the hook.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, or watch a hopper dropper at times. We're like, I'm not sure. Set the hook. Yeah. You know, that's tough. It's not as visual as the dry fly.
I mean, sticks and rocks don't come up and eat dries.
No, exactly. They definitely eat nymphs.
Yeah, they eat nymphs pretty good. They
eat nymphs. So, yeah, I've been doing a lot of that on my guide trips lately. Just, you know, why not? It's like, let's see some fish come up and eat some dries.
Well, you know, that's the thing. I feel like a lot is sure you can throw a nymph rig and make your day.
Yeah.
You know, but the people don't really leave with any more knowledge than they came with.
Exactly.
And I feel like, you know, you're actually working better to turn people into actual anglers.
Exactly, yeah. And get them hooked.
Get them hooked on what's actually happening and what can be possible with fly fishing. You know, it's not just about turn and burn with people.
No, yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't want to do that. And a lot of people don't want to sit in a hole and just nymph. You know, a lot of people don't understand what's going on there, what you're trying to do. And I did a little bit of that today, but honestly, like, I keep going back to it because it's just fresh in my mind. But my lady today, you know, is like, dude, she missed, you know, half a dozen fish right off the bat. You know, she saw a bunch of fish, and then she hooked one, you know, and she was ecstatic. She's like, oh, I get it. I understand. I know what I'm looking for now. You know, I understand what's going on.
I love that.
And she'd never fished in her life, you know, fly fished. And she was like, this is awesome, you know, and she was like, I don't need to catch any more fish as long as you just keep and I was like, well, we're going to catch more fish or you'll miss more fish.
You don't say that. We're going to see more fish.
Yeah, we're going to see more fish. You know, we're going to see more. But, you know, just getting her on that dry fly got her stoked. And you learn more. You learn about mending, about managing your line, about setting the hook, about all kinds of stuff. And if you can cast a dry fly, you can cast most rigs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it takes a lot of finesse to cast a dry fly.
You actually have to fly fish to cast a dry fly.
Yeah, and it's not easy.
No. And it's, I don't know, it's just the coolest way to catch fish.
It is, man. And, you know, like I said, people just get stoked on it. You know, I'm definitely not. When we were talking about it the other day, but I did this last year too, man, where I just like, I quit throwing the hopper dropper, quit throwing the nymph rigs, and I was like, I'm throwing dry flies until I absolutely have to nymph.
Yeah.
And it was good. Last year was a great dry fly year, though.
It was an insane dry fly year.
But, you know, it was like, screw it, man. I'd rather see a fish come up and eat a dry fly instead of watching an indicator go down. And you know, I'm not saying anybody's doing it wrong.
No.
I'm just saying I got bored.
But by the same token, I believe that with beginners, you can catch the same amount of fish on dries.
You know, I've been thinking that.
And it's like, okay, you know, maybe you catch a dozen fish on the nymph, or you catch a dozen fish on the dry fly.
Or you see a dozen fish on
what's more
dry
fun?
fly. Yeah, exactly. Would you rather see a fish come up and eat? And I had some long-time clients the other day. Pretty good fishermen. They're avid. You know, they do, I mean, avid in a certain sense.
Right.
But, I mean, they do 3 or 4 trips with me a year, and then they'll go to Montana and fish. They'll go to Wyoming and fish.
That's better than most
you know,
avid.
Like, oh, yeah. You know, most people, I think I said on the last podcast, where it's like, people will be like, oh, I've been fishing for 40 years. And be like, oh, so you've been on 1 trip a year for the last 40 years?
You've been fishing 40 times
Yeah, you've been fishing 40 times in 40 years. That doesn't mean you're avid. But, you know, these guys, they're like, I told them right up front, I go, look, I want to throw dry flies today. And this is the day after we went and floated. And I was like, dude, trust me. Yeah. Like, you're gonna like the way you look. I guarantee it. But I told him, you know, here's how we're gonna do it. Here's how it's gonna work. And halfway through, the dude in the back of the boat looks at me and goes, Cameron, this is the best time I think I've ever had with you fishing. He goes, man, we're throwing dry flies. We get to see fish come up and eat. I don't know how many I've missed. I don't know how many I've caught.
Yeah.
That's
Perfect.
a great time.
That's what you want.
And I asked him after, I go, well, are you guys going to fish again this year? I don't see any trips on the books. And they go, oh, yeah, we'll book a couple. I'm like, good. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice. But yeah, man, I mean, it's like I said at the beginning, it's the epitome of fly fishing, man. And, again, I'll probably get some shit from a certain someone about this podcast. And I definitely don't know enough about dry fly fishing, but I'm learning.
Nah, who does, dude?
Yeah.
Who does?
I mean, here's a great point, too. And this comes from, Maddie, where he says, man, like, I fish dry flies because I want to be good at it when there is a prolific hatch. I'm going to fish dry flies. I'm going to fish dry flies so I'm good. And then all of a sudden there's going to be a prolific hatch, and I'm going to be banging them up because I'm going to be proficient at it.
Well, and that's
it's a good point.
About. It's just getting better, being smarter.
Exactly.
Doing it as best as possible.
Being better fishermen, being better guides, being better.
Not trying to beat anybody but ourselves, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I brought that up on the podcast too. Where it's like, look, the only person I'm out there trying to be better than is myself. That's the only person I have to think about that day. Yeah. Is I have to be better than me than I was the day before.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing you can do, even if you're not a guide.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time you go
fishing.
Every
time you fish.
Like, you can't just settle into one thing, one way to fish. Just dry flies, just hopper dropper, just nymphing. You got to know.
I have something written down. I don't know how much I have on it, but there's those dry fly enthusiasts out there.
Yeah.
That only throw dry flies.
No, I only throw dries.
Yeah, I only throw dries. And that's okay. That's all right. Maybe they're older. That's all they know. But there's also streamer enthusiasts out there. All they throw is streamers.
Streamer junkie.
My thing is, it's kind of like I think you need to be good at all of it.
Gotta be.
And the only way to get good at it all is to try it all. And don't get stuck in one way.
Well, there's a difference between being a fly fisherman and a dry fly fisherman.
Exactly. And there's a difference between being a fly fisherman and a nymph fisherman.
Yeah.
There's a difference in all of them. If you only do one thing, if you only nymph, but that's what I'm saying about that, like if you're going to, you might as well get good at dries, and throw dries. It's the same thing with nymphing. If you're not catching them, you might as well get good at it until you're good.
Yeah.
And then move on. Go to something else.
Well, there's days where you could be throwing the best dry fly casts and drifts ever, and they're just not going to come up and eat it.
Yeah, but it's cool to get good at it.
Oh,
and
totally.
then be like, all right, when they are coming up, I'm going to be good.
Yeah. But then,
and that way, when you go to walk or get on the boat, you're good.
You're dry fly expert.
Yeah.
But, by the same token, you want to get good at it all, like you just
exactly.
Because,
okay, here's a great
you want to
point.
catch fish.
And here I go. I'm about to get on a streamer rant. But I do this, but I'm going for it. So, the other day when we were floating with Birkan, we were throwing dry flies most of the day. Got a little windy, and we're still throwing dries. We're still having okay luck. We got into the lower section. It got a little cloudy, and the water churned up a little bit, I think from Tamichi coming in or whatever. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to throw a streamer.
Yeah.
I just want to see what happens. I just want to see if I can see a big one. That's kind of what I was going for. And I told you when I tied on the streamer, I said, if it's not happening, it's not happening. And I'm not going to beat my dick into the wall trying to make it happen.
Yeah.
But we saw 3 probably really good sized fish, over 20.
One that was insane.
Yeah. One that didn't eat, but it was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is like, I would say, I'm not trying to be arrogant here. I would say I can fish a streamer. I'm good at it.
Yeah.
But I know that already. I don't need to pick it up all the time. Streamer fishing isn't that hard.
No, once you do it.
Once you get it and you understand how to do it. And, but you can take the biggest streamer enthusiast and be like, hey, watch this. And you can show them something like, oh, I never knew how to do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, this will change your game. And
I'm going to exclude somebody from this, and that's Kelly Gallup, dude.
Okay, but Kelly Gallup's a nymph fisherman.
No, I know, but he's good at everything.
He's good at everything.
He's really good.
He is a fly fisherman. He's good at it all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, I'm not the best streamer fisherman. I'm good at it.
No, No, yeah.
I can tease fish and I can get them to eat.
Oh, totally.
And I can get them to the boat and then get them to eat.
Totally.
You know, next to the boat. But, you know, like, once you're good at something, you know, like, yeah, I could always get better at throwing a streamer. I could always get different, but it's not something I want to do.
Streamer fishing is...
It's not something I want to do. I'd rather see...
I don't know, man. Trout eat bugs. They eat other fish occasionally, but they mostly eat bugs.
And honestly, I told you when I tied it on, I was like, I just want to see a big fish. I want to see what's in here.
And it will move them because...
I was just using it as freaking sonar pretty much. Like,
yeah.
You know, I'm just looking for big fish.
Well,
so then I can catch them on the
They chase little fish out of their hole. They'll eat little fish occasionally.
Yeah.
You know,
and we didn't see that many eats.
No.
We just moved fish.
And I feel like that's a lot of what happens with streamer fishing. There's some people.
Same with dries too.
Yeah, dry.
I mean, that's what we talked about. You know, when I was talking about the hopper dropper and even dry flies. Like dry flies, you might not necessarily get them to eat all the time.
They come out and look at it.
But they come out, you can see them. It's kind of same thing as the streamer at times where you're just fish finding. You know, like you're just moving fish, trying to see them.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people get into the streamer action.
I mean, it's constant action when it's good.
When it's good.
Sometimes it's just like you're...
And honestly, the other day, it wasn't good.
No.
It was just we moved a couple big fish. We're like, now we know where they're at.
Now, we've had some days where streamer fishing is real good.
Yes.
They eat it.
Yes.
And it's like, oh.
I know.
Okay.
But honestly, the streamer rod only comes out when it's like, all right, I know that it's cloudy, it's rainy, it's shitty. This is the only thing that's going to work right now.
And I mean,
I don't know, man.
In our repertoire,
I just like
that's where it has its place. A lot of people, you know, maybe they have something else figured out that we don't know about. Email us.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk
Email
about
us.
it. But I come from a standpoint where fish eat bugs, trout eat bugs, and they occasionally will eat other fish.
I hope we get so many like freaking streamer people coming.
Dude,
in.
I want it.
I only fish streamers.
I want that debate to happen. Because, you know, a lot of people are like, my biggest fish ever came on a streamer, and I know people.
Yeah.
But my biggest fish ever came on a really tiny nymph.
Yep.
So, trout.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know,
there's a time, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like I'm backtracking a little bit, and I'm kind of like, I don't know.
Well, it's just a discussion. It's a conversation. This is a conversation you could have at the bar or on a podcast. So, you know, there's
and that's what we're doing. But, you know, it's just like, dude, you didn't say anything the other day when I broke it out. You're just like, yeah. And I didn't even have streamers on me. I had to borrow one from you because I was like, I didn't even bring them, dude.
And my streamer collection is abysmal.
I was like, well, this one kind of looks okay. I'll try it.
Yeah, I don't have much going on in there.
But it was like one of those things where it was late in the day and it got a little cloudy and I was like, screw it. You know, like I'm going to go for it and see if I can move one. But what did we say after that float? I went, now we know where the big ones are and we can catch them on a bug now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now we can try and get one in there and catch it on a bug.
Also, I just want to bring this up. Would you rather see a really big fish eat a dry fly or
definitely
a
dry fly?
Yeah, dude.
I'd much rather see it eat a dry fly. And most times that doesn't happen.
No.
But, you know, my biggest fish with a client to date was on a dry fly.
Yeah.
27 inches on a dry fly.
That's badass.
Pretty sick.
Yeah. And we just caught, we threw dries yesterday, and we caught several fish in the 18 to 20 range.
Oh, yeah.
On dry flies.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
That's way cooler, dude, than like, I don't know. Dude, and streamer fishing just wears you out, man. Dude, wears your arm out.
It's ugly. It's ugly.
Yeah.
Is the other thing.
It doesn't look good. I mean, it doesn't always have to look good, but hopefully we get some emails. Oh, it's effective. Oh, look at this fish. I can't wait to see him.
Yeah, bring it on, dude.
Let's do this. I will go toe-to-toe on the streamer debate, I feel like.
Let's go. What needs to happen is you need to email, but then you need to come out for a showdown. We're going to go sunny day versus cloudy day. Yep. You don't get to throw anything but streamers.
Yeah, both days.
And we'll throw dries and hopper dropper and nymphs, and then
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, see what the biggest fish is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to have that competition with somebody, but like with other flies too, where it's like, all right, look, you get to pick one fly for me that I get to fish all day, but I get to fish it the way I want.
Yeah.
I get to pick one fly for you, but it has to be within a certain standard.
Yeah.
Like it can't just be crazy, like, oh, you have to throw this freaking ant pattern all day. It can't be something like that. We're like, oh, you got to throw this flying ant all day. Good luck. But I want to have a competition like that.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be fun to have a streamer comp.
That would be
We
fun.
might have a dude maybe at some point in time that wants to go Euro nymphing versus regular.
I mean,
But
dude,
I don't know if he's
in.
no Lance Egan. But
That'd be tough to go up against Lance Egan.
yeah.
But
I don't know, man.
dude, but there's a kid that lives in Crested Butte that apparently is quite the Euro nympher.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll have to talk to this guy.
I would love to talk to him.
You have contact info for this guy?
I think one of the other guides.
Okay. I want to check it
GIG
out, dude.
does. Yeah.
I want to check it out. But I guess the moral of the story is, like, you got to be good at it all.
Got to.
You can't just be good at one thing.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be able to change it up and be good at all of it.
Yeah, and that's what makes you an effective fly fisherman, not a one-trick pony.
Exactly. No, that would suck, dude. If I was a one-trick pony.
No.
This is all I got, man. All I know how to throw is one chubby and one dropper, dude. I'm done.
They're not
I'm
eating
done.
it? Well, I
Toast.
better pack it up.
Yeah, but, like, okay, here's those times where it's like you get fish eating indicators, and you're like, why am I nymphing right now?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing? Fish are eating indicators.
They're obviously looking.
They're
to eat
looking up.
something.
Yeah, they're looking up. Why don't I throw a big-ass indicator fly?
Yeah.
Maybe we should
Might
try
as well.
pink chubbies, dude. It's
Dude.
all pink chubbies.
They love to eat pink bobbers for some reason. I don't know what that's about.
I'm just going to start tying. Oh, I got it.
Peg a hook.
I got
off
the
of
fly. I got the fly, dude. Grease up a big egg, pink egg, dude. Make fly.
Throw droppers off. Of
Yeah, dude. Just grease it up, dude, and freaking, ooh,
Dude,
that'd be
just a
good.
big foam ball.
Yeah, that's all you
You
need.
tie your own indicator.
And just put a hook in there.
yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
that's it. Game over. Done. We
I
got
think
it figured out. We're good at fly fishing now.
That's all that you need to do.
I don't know if I have more to say on dry flies. I went on my streamer rant for the podcast.
Yeah,
that
that was
helped.
good. I enjoyed that.
Hopefully we covered a bunch of stuff about dry flies. I'm sure we're going to get some shit. I'm sure people have more things to say.
That's fine.
We can only say
It's fine.
so much in one sitting
I guess
because there's so many things you can cover.
totally. I'm not sitting here trying to say that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Is what I want to
Yeah. Same.
leave with.
No, and we're not saying
It's a
we're
big
exactly
takeaway.
right.
But like, different rivers. I guess
It's just our
there's
experience.
probably
too.
some rivers where it's like, dude, streamer fishing is the way to
Yeah,
go.
exactly.
So
I've heard that. I've
that's
heard that about certain
yeah.
things.
I've been to rivers.
I'll
like
do
that.
it.
Oh, I'm not against it.
No.
I'm just saying that here on this
I mean,
river.
I'm pretty against it, but I'll do it if I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. If that's all I got to do to catch fish, yeah, I'll do it. And
I like to see trout eat bugs. That's all
true.
that I'm going to say.
All right. Well, I guess we can wrap up what we got. But yeah, send us your emails, theguidedtrip@gmail.com. Find us on Instagram, theguidedtrip. Dane's on Instagram, backcast. What is it?
Yep.
Just backcast?
It's
Or
back.cast.
back.cast. That's
me.
Dane. And yeah, Ryan wasn't here, so we don't need to plug him. Stupid. But
Oh, yeah, it would have been good if he was here. He's a big streamer guy.
he is, man. He would have had some things to say. He doesn't throw dry flies often.
That would have been a good argument
Yeah.
for everyone to
Oh,
hear.
we would have gotten into it.
Yeah.
I need to get it.
Pour some booze on that argument? Oh,
Ooh.
man.
We need to get a good streamer fisherman here. Well, just even just this guy who throws streamers constantly. Yeah, I know. We need to get one here though, and just really soak up the booze and go after it.
Yeah. Let's get into it.
Wait till we get heated.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Drop the gloves. Freaking go for it, dude. Shirt over the head. Start piercing him with streamers. Throwing dry flies at his face, dude, like sand in the
You take
eyes.
that.
Yeah, sand in the eyes, but they're just dry flies. Ow, dry flies. They burn.
I hate them.
Well, yeah, send us your comments, concerns, hate us, love us, whatever you want. We enjoy doing the podcast, so
I'd love to hear it.
yeah,
All of
I
it.
kind of want to hear it too. I hope this gets crazy.
Rip us up.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This has been The Guided Trip.